Hi, welcome to Psychology Live. This is Dr. Gail Majcher, clinical psychologist. We're in her beautiful office in downtown Northville, Michigan. I'm Mary DiPaolo, M-A-L-L-P, also a limited licensed psychologist whose office is down the street and around the corner. Today, for our kickoff first session officially on Psychology Live, we're going to talk about anxiety.
But before we do that, just in case you didn't see our last video clip, I wanted to mention that Mary and I used to have a radio show. We were the first female radio show on WJR in Detroit, and that was such a wonderful experience. It was called Sunday Sessions. I think they might even still have the podcast on their website.
Right.
But each week we would cover a different topic. So we knew when that ended that we would want to pick up again at another time. And then we got busy with life. So now we've decided, okay, now's the time. We're going to do it on YouTube, and we're going to do it in 10-minute segments. Most people have a relatively short attention span, so we're going to give a lot of information in 10 minutes. We have both been doing therapy for a very long time, so we have a lot of information to give. We've chosen to talk about anxiety today because anxiety is the number one reason that people come in for therapy, and millions of people suffer with anxiety, and it's terrible. And anxiety can be worked through. You don't have to be stuck in that state of anxiety. So we'll give you some ideas today.
Absolutely. Anxiety is rooted in fear. If anxiety were the hugest tree you've ever seen, all the roots of that tree would say fear, 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 because it's fear, one of the 9 primary emotions that was actually designed originally to serve as a protective device against literal danger or life-threatening situations. Anxiety is not a bad thing, but it goes off kilter and wackadoodle when we break that alarm system in its way within our brain that the amygdala controls. So we're going to be talking about that along with the factors that help us to get back our ability to distinguish between what's legitimate and what's not in terms of what we are afraid of.
It seems like anxiety comes in 2 different ways. It can be your genetic coding. Many times when people come in for anxiety and we trace back over their history, we find that other people have had anxiety too. You know, we all get something genetically. Some people get anxiety. So at some point in their life, it explodes. Sometimes it's maybe in their 20s, but it could be at any time that it really becomes full-blown anxiety. Another way to have anxiety is to go through some kind of trauma. Being a victim of domestic violence, being a victim of any kind of crime that causes anxiety. And it's real anxiety, it's situational, it's not genetic, it's situational, but it ends up being the same in the brain and the way it manifests itself within you.
Right. There's so many different forms of anxiety, from social anxiety to obsessive compulsive disorder to post-traumatic stress disorder. And yet, when it comes down to how we treat anxiety in order to help people manage their anxiety more effectively, it all begins with teaching them what is real and what is not, which means learning how to live in the present instead of drifting mentally to the future or the past and throwing yourself under the bus in the process of doing that.
One of the main techniques we use with anxiety is called cognitive restructuring. We want to change the thought patterns because with anxiety, it's very easy to spiral out. We go off on tangents from the past to the future, what I could have said, should have said, they said, and we spin. And many times when we've gone through something traumatic, say a divorce, when you're going through a divorce, for a little while there, you do spin because you're trying to sort it all out. You want it to make sense. We want things to make sense and be fair. And there's a lot of things in life that just don't make sense and they're not fair. But we have to process them for a little while. But then at one point, we have to get our thinking back to what's happening in reality. For years in my office, I've had this plaque. It says, "You will know the truth and the truth will set you free." It's John 8:30. And what I love about this is that good mental health means being based in reality. So when we're doing cognitive restructuring, we're figuring out what's true and what isn't. What is spitting out there and what is the fact, what's the truth. Because what's real and true, we can work on.
Right.
We can work that out. If we're talking about something that's way out there, you can't work on that because that's not real.
Right.
It's like, let's come back to the present.
Exactly. Feelings don't have an IQ and they come and go like traffic, but the facts stick around forever. And here's the truth about, don't you laugh. I kind of made that up, just saying, but it's true.
Good,
but anyway, here's the thing. When you're in real life right now, what's the real life right now problem that you can either solve, resolve, or dissolve? You know, worry, that's a form of anxiety. What the hell's worry going to accomplish for you? Gives you something to do, gets you nowhere. And that's why anxiety can be such a tough problem to work through, because people get kind of addicted and comfortably familiar with worrying. Mm-hmm. Hey, if you're going to worry, how about trying praying instead? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? So we have to teach people how to deal with their real life right now problems if they feel they have them, so they can solve them, or they can resolve them, or they can dissolve them.
They may be real life problems. Right now, in the present, there may be some circumstances that are causing anxiety. Okay, well, we can figure out what are the best coping skills for those circumstances. You know, many times anxiety is from the past or the future, but it may be in the present. So if it is, okay, we can develop coping techniques for that versus staying stuck in anxiety. It's like we get on this wheel up in our mind, and especially if someone has hurt us, we can go on and on and on, and before you know it, they become like our mini-God. They take over our mind. Well, no, you don't have to do that. We can come back to the present, figure out what's real, and how are we going to deal with whatever is happening in your life currently that needs to be worked through.
Because what a lot of people do, which is unfortunate, especially when they're fixated on the past, they're trying to unring a bell that you can't unring. That already happened. So guess what? You ain't got no power and control over fixing that back there. Hello.
But you can learn from it.
You can learn. And
you can become stronger.
Yes.
You can develop coping skills for the same type of thing happening in the future.
Right. And then if you're fixated on the future, you know, that can go a couple different ways too. You can fixate on the future like, yeah, I'd much rather live in La La Land. It's so nice there. And think about all the stuff that these kids and all of us can do now to take us away from reality.
Netflix, Amazon Prime.
Or, you know, hate to say it, porn, you know, all the bad stuff that's out there, really and truly, that can really just mess you up.
We will definitely be addressing those topics.
We are going to be addressing that.
Because those are very important topics.
But, you know, when you're in the future, fixated in the future, it's either going to be fantasy-driven or anxiety-driven. What if this happens? Okay, what if you forget about what you did today because you're so fixated on what you were dreaming about or worried about in the future? That madness really, truly has to stop.
I want to give you an example so that you can understand how clearly anxiety can be worked through. A couple years ago, someone came in to see me, maybe not even that long ago, and they were suffering from terrible panic attacks. They couldn't work, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't function. As a matter of fact, someone had to drive them here because that's how bad it was. And I remember when she came in, and there's a look that people have with anxiety. You know, you
mean like this?
Like that. And
like this?
Like that. And I knew she could get better, and I told her, and I know that she probably didn't believe that. But we worked really hard on changing those thought patterns, the cognitive restructuring. We worked very hard on it. Yeah. And now you fast forward today, and she is functioning better than she ever has in her life. You know, when you go through something like anxiety and panic attacks, once you work it through, you're stronger than you've ever been because you have to develop what we call ego strength, this inner core strength to make it through. So she is doing better than she ever has. Right. I said to her this week, did you ever think this was going to happen? She said, no, when you would say it, I didn't believe you at all. But I want you to know that even at that extreme, you can get better. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, you can get better if you have anxiety. Right,
because when your anxiety is in control of you instead of you being in control of it, you believe all the bad press releases that have ever been said about yourself or to you in your own mind. And, you know, our anxiety, I mean, it's interesting. It can just be in your head, just like how it is with people out in the world. Does your anxiety yell at you? Does it chatter at you? Does it whisper to you?
And I'm going to interrupt you there because our 10 minutes are just about up.
All right.
So we will be picking up on another topic next time,
or maybe continue this topic.
Or maybe continue this. So goodbye from Psychology Live.